It was a bright Friday morning in Atlanta. The sun reflected off the glass windows of Jefferson First National Bank, where customers streamed in and out, some depositing paychecks, others withdrawing cash before the weekend. Among them walked Angela Brooks, a 32-year-old single mother. She wore her simple navy work uniform, her hair tied neatly, her eyes tired but determined. Today was supposed to be a good day. For months, Angela had worked double shifts at the nursing home, saving every dollar she could. Her sacrifices had finally added up to something worth celebrating: $10,000. This money wasn't lottery winnings. It wasn't some miracle. It was sweat, sacrifice, and endless nights of overtime. And she was proud of it. Inside the bank, Angela stood patiently in line. Her hands clutched a plain envelope containing the $10,000 cash, her savings, for a down payment on a small home for her and her 8-year-old son, Malik. When it was her turn, she stepped forward to the teller, a young man in a crisp white shirt. She smiled politely. "Good morning. I'd like to deposit this into my account, please." The teller glanced at the envelope, then at her. His smile faltered slightly. "How much is it?" "$10,000, Angela said, sliding the envelope across. The teller's brows rose. His tone shifted, polite but clipped. "That's a lot of money. In cash?" Angela nodded. "Yes, I've been saving it for a long time." The teller excused himself quickly. "Just a moment." He carried the envelope to a back office, whispering to another employee. Angela's stomach sank. She could feel the eyes of the other customers on her, could hear the whispers forming. Why does she have so much money? Minutes passed. Then the branch manager appeared, a middle-aged woman with a forced smile. "Miss Brooks, can we ask where you got this money?" Angela blinked. "Excuse me?" "It's standard procedure," the manager said smoothly. "Large deposits need explanation." "Do you have paperwork? Proof of where this came from?" Angela's voice tightened. "It came from my job, from my paychecks. I worked for it." But the manager's eyes remained skeptical. Angela shifted uneasily as the manager stepped into the back office again. She saw her pick up the phone, speak in hushed tones, her expression tense. Within minutes, 2 uniformed police officers entered the bank. Their presence turned heads instantly. Customers stared. The air grew heavy. "Miss Brooks," one officer said firmly, "we need to ask you some questions." Angela's heart pounded. "About what?" The officer's eyes flicked to the envelope of cash now sealed in a plastic evidence bag. "About this deposit. We've had reports of suspicious activity." Her throat tightened. "Suspicious?" "That's my money." But already, customers were watching, murmuring. To them, she didn't look like a hard-working mother making a deposit. She looked like a suspect. The officers motioned her aside. "Ma'am, please come with us." Angela's hands shook. "I haven't done anything wrong." One officer reached for her arm. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." Her cheeks burned with humiliation. She looked around for support, but saw none, only curious stares, some judgmental, some pitying. Even the teller avoided her gaze. "Please," she whispered. "I'm just depositing my savings." But her protests fell on deaf ears. The cold metal of handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Gasps rippled through the bank. Angela Brooks, who had done nothing more than bring in the fruit of her hard work, was led out like a criminal dot as she stepped into the glaring sunlight. Reporters' voices echoed in her mind even though no cameras were there yet. Her son's face flashed before her eyes. What would Malik think if he saw his mother like this? And yet, the worst wasn't over, because just when it seemed her dignity had been stripped, when it seemed her voice had been silenced, a figure stepped forward. Someone who had been watching. Someone who had the power to speak. And when he did, the entire story began to change. On an ordinary day, a hard-working black woman walked into a bank to deposit her savings. Minutes later, she was in handcuffs. But injustice has a way of exposing itself, and the voice that spoke next would turn her humiliation into a fight for truth. And just as a squad car smelled faintly of stale coffee and leather, Angela sat in the back seat, hands cuffed tightly, staring out at the city streets she knew so well. Just an hour ago, she had walked them with hope. Now, every passing building blurred through tears. The officers in the front spoke in clipped tones. 10 grand in cash. Gotta be drugs or fraud. Angela's head snapped up. It's not drugs. It's from my job. Neither officer turned to face her. One chuckled. Under his breath, Angela pressed her cuffed wrists against her lap, her voice trembling. I take care of the elderly. Double shifts. For months, I saved every dollar. Why don't you believe me? Silence answered her. The city rolled by, indifferent. At the station, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Angela was led inside. Officers stared. One muttered, "What's she in for?" The reply was flat. Suspicious bank deposit. Angela felt her cheeks burn. She was fingerprinted, photographed, ordered to remove her jewelry, including the small silver bracelet her late grandmother had given her. "This isn't right," she whispered, but the processing officer barely glanced at her. Her belongings were sealed in a plastic bag. Her envelope of $10. Her son's future was labeled evidence. Locked in a holding cell, Angela sank onto the cold bench. Her mind raced to Malik. He was at school now, probably doodling superheroes in his notebook. He believed his mother was strong, unstoppable. What will he think when I don't come home tonight? Tears slid silently down her face. She had fought so hard to give him stability, and in one afternoon, strangers had turned her into a criminal. In the eyes of the world, hours later, 2 detectives entered the room. Their suits were wrinkled, their eyes sharp. Angela Brooks, one said, flipping open a file. You deposited $10,000 in cash. Where did it come from? I told you, Angela said steadily. From my job. I work at Riverbend nursing home. I've been saving every paycheck. The detective leaned forward. Funny, most people don't walk around with that kind of cash. You sure no one gave it to you? A boyfriend? Maybe someone with less than legal income? Angela's voice cracked with frustration. I don't have a boyfriend. I don't have anyone, just me and my son. That money is mine. The second detective scribbled something, muttering, everyone says that. The flashback. Years of sacrifice. Angela's mind drifted as they grilled her. She remembered long nights at the nursing home changing bedpans, feeding patients who couldn't lift a spoon, holding trembling hands through endless nights. She remembered skipping meals so Malik could eat, patching his school shoes with glue, telling him stories about Sunday when they would have their own home. Every dollar had been earned honestly, painfully, and now every sacrifice was being twisted into suspicion. When the interrogation ended, Angela was escorted back through the station. Officers glanced up from desks, some smirking, some indifferent. She overheard one whisper. Bet she thought she was slick. Her stomach twisted. She wanted to scream, to shout her truth, but her voice felt small against the weight of their assumptions. This wasn't justice. This was humiliation. As hours stretched into night, Angela sat alone in her cell, the concrete walls pressed in. Every clink of keys, every echoing footstep made her flinch. Her heart ached for Malik. She pictured him lying in bed, waiting for her to tuck him in, wondering why she hadn't come home. Who would explain this to him? She whispered to herself, "Stay strong," for him. But the words tasted bitter when no one believed her innocence. Unbeknownst to Angela, someone else had been at the bank earlier that day, someone who had witnessed the entire scene unfold. And when he spoke, when his voice finally broke through the noise of prejudice and suspicion, everything would begin to change. But for now, Angela sat in silence, her dignity stripped, her future hanging in the balance, wondering if truth had any power left in a world stacked against her. A hard-working mother, treated like a criminal, a bank that saw skin before it saw character, a system that judged without listening. But injustice doesn't stay hidden forever, because when one man spoke, the truth began to crack open, and the fight for Angela's freedom truly began. When Angela had been dragged out of Jefferson First National Bank in handcuffs, most customers had turned away, whispering judgments or simply pretending not to see. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a weathered face that carried both authority and compassion. His name was James Carter, a retired judge known in the city for his sharp mind and unshakable sense of justice. James had been sitting quietly in the corner of the bank that day, filling out paperwork for his grandson's college fund. He had watched the entire scene: Angela's polite deposit, the teller's suspicious glance, the manager's hushed phone call, and finally, the humiliating arrest. And he hadn't missed the look in Angela's eyes, the mix of fear, shame, and quiet dignity. Hours later, James walked into the precinct where Angela was being held. Officers straightened when they recognized him. His reputation preceded him. "I need to speak with the woman you brought in from Jefferson Bank," he said firmly. The desk. Sergeant hesitated. "Judge Carter, she's under investigation for suspicious activity." James's eyes narrowed. "Suspicious activity? You mean depositing her own money? I saw everything." "You had no probable cause." The room went quiet. No one argued with Judge Carter. Moments later, Angela looked up as the cell door opened. Instead of another officer, she saw the older man with kind eyes. "Miss Brooks," he said gently, "my name is James Carter. I was at the bank today. I saw what happened. Angela's lips parted, disbelief flooding her face. You were there. He nodded. Yes, and I won't stay silent while injustice tears apart your life. You did nothing wrong. For the first time that day, Angela's shoulders loosened slightly. Someone believed her. James requested Angela's immediate release. The detectives pushed back. With all due respect, Judge, 10,000 in cash is unusual. One argued. James's voice sharpened. Unusual is not illegal. Since when do we arrest people for saving their wages? Or is the real issue that she's a black woman carrying money you assume she couldn't have earned? The room fell silent. No one met his eyes. This arrest was unlawful, James continued. If you don't release her immediately, I'll make sure this department answers for it in court and in the press. The sergeant swallowed hard. Within minutes, Angela's cuffs were removed. Her belongings minus the sealed envelope of cash were returned. Angela rubbed her sore wrists, tears stinging her eyes. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. James offered a small, reassuring smile. Don't thank me. Thank yourself for holding your dignity when they tried to strip it from you. Now, we'll make sure they answer for what they did. Angela blinked. You mean, fight back? Yes, James said firmly. Because this isn't just about you. It's about every person treated as guilty before innocent. The next day, headlines erupted. Black woman wrongfully arrested for depositing savings. Retired judge speaks out against racial bias at Jefferson Bank. Angela's face appeared on TV screens not as a criminal, but as a survivor of injustice. The footage of her being led out in cuffs, paired with James Carter's damning words, sparked outrage across the city. Community leaders demanded accountability. Protesters gathered outside the bank, chanting, "Her money, her rights." What had begun as humiliation was turning into a movement. Encouraged by James, Angela stood before microphones for the first time. Her voice trembled at first, but grew stronger with each word. I worked for that money. Every dollar came from long nights at the nursing home, caring for people's parents and grandparents. And yet, when I tried to put it in the bank, I was treated like a criminal. This isn't just about me. This is about the system that looks at someone like me and assumes the worst. Her words resonated. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras flashed. The crowd cheered. Angela Brooks, once invisible, had become a symbol of dignity in the face of injustice. A black woman was silenced, handcuffed, and humiliated. But when one man spoke one voice of truth, the silence shattered. The world was finally listening. And now, the fight for justice would not stop until every chain of prejudice was broken. Within days of her release, Angela's story had spread across local news outlets and social media. Clips of Judge Carter condemning the arrest went viral. People were outraged. How can depositing your own money be a crime? Civil rights organizations reached out to Angela. We want to represent you. One lawyer said over the phone, what happened to you is bigger than just a mistake, it's systemic bias. Angela hesitated at first. She wasn't used to spotlights, to lawyers quoting laws and demanding statements. But when she thought of Malik of the world, he would grow up in. She nodded. Yes, let's fight this. The case moved quickly. On one side, Angela Brooks, a single mother with nothing but her truth. On the other, Jefferson First National Bank and the police department, backed by expensive attorneys. The courtroom buzzed with tension. Reporters filled the benches. Protesters stood outside with signs reading, "Saving is not a crime and justice for Angela." Angela sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands clasped tightly. Judge Carter, though retired, sat behind her. In quiet support, the defense opened coldly. Large cash deposits are unusual. The bank had every right to suspect illegal activity. Angela's lawyer rose sharply. Unusual is not illegal. This was racial bias, plain and simple. If a wealthy white man walked in with $10,000 cash, would he have been handcuffed or only questioned politely? Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. When it was her turn to speak, Angela stood slowly. Her voice trembled, but she met every eye. "I am not a criminal. I am a mother. I work double shifts at a nursing home. I saved for months to give my son a better life. And for being a black woman with cash, I was treated like a thief." She paused, fighting back tears. "The humiliation didn't end with me. My son saw me on the news. He asked why Mommy was in handcuffs. How do I explain to an 8-year-old that the world doesn't always see his mother's worth?" The room was silent. Even the judge shifted uncomfortably. The bank's manager took the stand. Under questioning, she admitted she had no proof of wrongdoing. "It was just unusual," she muttered. "Unusual." Angela's lawyer pressed, "Or uncomfortable. Uncomfortable to see a black woman with more than you assumed she could have?" The manager stammered. The silence in the courtroom was damning. Next came the officers. They tried to justify the arrest, but Judge Carter's written testimony cut through. There was no probable cause. The arrest was unlawful. Outside the courthouse, crowds swelled. Students, workers, pastors, and activists chanted Angela's name. She had become more than a plaintiff. She was a symbol. Signs read, "We are all Angela." News anchors called it the case that could redefine banking bias. Editorials demanded reform. Banks across the city scrambled to review their policies. Angela watched from the courthouse steps, overwhelmed. "I never wanted to be a symbol," she whispered to Judge Carter. He smiled gently. "Symbols aren't chosen. They're born when truth refuses to stay silent." After weeks of testimony, the judge delivered his ruling. The arrest of Angela Brooks was unjust, unlawful, and rooted in prejudice. Jefferson Bank and the local police department are hereby ordered to compensate Ms. Brooks and issue a public apology. Cheers erupted outside. Angela covered her face, tears spilling down. Justice wasn't just spoken, it was recognized. A bank tried to humiliate her. A system tried to silence her. But in the courtroom, her truth roared louder. Angela Brooks had gone from handcuffs to headlines, from nobody to the voice of thousands who had suffered in silence. And the final act would show what justice truly looks like, not just for her, but for everyone watching. Weeks after the verdict, Jefferson First National Bank held a press conference. Cameras clicked, reporters jostled, the world waited. The branch manager, once smug and dismissive, now stood with trembling hands, reading from a prepared statement. She admitted, "We acted with bias. We treated Ms. Brooks unfairly. For that, we apologize not only to her, but to every customer who has ever felt unseen or disrespected." It was more than just words. It was a confession broadcast nationwide. Angela watched from her modest apartment, Malik by her side, for the first time in months. She exhaled without the weight of shame pressing down. As part of the ruling, Angela received financial compensation. Lawyers urged her to take the money and leave quietly. But Angela saw a greater purpose. "This isn't just about me," she told them. "If my mother, my neighbors, my co-workers walk into a bank tomorrow, I want them treated with dignity, not suspicion." So she donated a portion of her settlement to create a community fund, the Brooks Justice Initiative, helping others fight cases of discrimination. One evening, Malik climbed into her lap, his small arms wrapping around her neck. "Mom," he whispered, "I saw you on TV. You were brave." Angela's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared, baby, but I had to be strong. For you," Malik grinned. "Does that mean we're still getting our house?" Angela kissed his forehead. "Yes, and no one can ever take it away from us again." The case sparked change beyond Angela's life. Banks across the state revised their deposit procedures. Training programs on racial bias were introduced. Lawmakers debated new policies to ensure customers weren't criminalized for doing ordinary things. Civil rights groups cited Angela's case as a landmark moment. Students studied it in classrooms. Activists held her name on posters during marches. What began as humiliation in a bank lobby had grown into a beacon of reform. Months later, Angela stood before a crowd at a university auditorium. Invited to speak about her journey, she looked out at rows of young faces, black, white, brown, all eager to hear her. "I was handcuffed for depositing my own money," she began, her voice steady. "But what they didn't realize was that you can chain wrists, but not dignity. You can silence voices, but not truth. And when truth speaks, it sets us all free." The audience rose in thunderous applause. Angela, once invisible, now stood as a voice of justice. Late that night, Angela sat at her kitchen table, the silver bracelet from her grandmother back on her wrist. She traced its smooth surface, whispering, "We made it." Outside, the city hummed as usual. But for Angela Brooks, nothing was the same. She had walked into a bank as a customer, been dragged out as a suspect, and emerged as a symbol. Once, a black woman was arrested for nothing more than depositing her hard-earned money. Her dignity was stripped, her innocence doubted, her voice ignored. But when one man spoke, and when she found the courage to speak for herself, truth shattered the walls of prejudice. Because justice is not about who has power. It is about who dares to stand when others are silenced. And Angela Brooks proved that even in handcuffs, a woman's strength can rewrite the law. So, what do you think? Should Angela have accepted quiet compensation? Or was she right to turn her pain into a movement for change? Tell us in the comments below. Don't forget to like this story if it inspired you. Share it with someone who believes in justice. And subscribe for more true stories with shocking twists and powerful morals.